Hello, everyone, and welcome down to episode number 82 of the Down South Photo Show with me, Brendan Waits, here in Ocean Grove, Victoria, Australia, and the guy on the other screen or in your other ear if you're listening to the podcast, not in Hobart, Tasmania tonight.
Everyone should be listening to the podcast.
Of course, everyone should be. It's Cam Blake. Hello, Cameron.
Hello, Brendan. Long time no see.
Yes.
Nice to catch up with you for another week of photography chit-chat.
Yes, it is long time no see. We literally caught up with each other this morning.
Yeah, we did. We saw each other for a few hours, had a lunch, and had a couple of beers.
We had a production meeting, Cameron, is what we did.
Sorry, yes, production meeting. Well, it sort of was. We used some of the free beer that's been donated to us. So
that's right.
Yeah, so it was. Yeah, production meeting sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm not.
Production meeting.
I'm not in Hobart. I'm in your neck of the woods. Well, speaking of woods, I'm at Greensboro with Mum and Dad at the moment, and
Awesome.
got some OM days on tomorrow and Friday, and then we've got a couple of Down South Photo Show workshops.
We have. How exciting! Looking forward to that. So there'll be people listening to this because it comes out Friday night who are actually doing the workshop with us tomorrow, Saturday, if they're listening to it on Friday night, and getting very excited. It looks like the weather's looking okay. There's the best jinx I've ever laid.
Yeah, no, the weather should be good. And yeah, maybe people will listen to this on the way down the freeway if they're coming down from Melbourne to our little workshop.
That's true.
Yeah. So looking forward to it. Yeah, the weather looks good and they're always a good day, a bit of fun and a bit of banter and maybe even learn some things along the way.
So you've literally got 4 one-day workshops in a row from here on.
Yeah, I do. So tomorrow, OM days in the city. I'm going to try and catch a train in. I'm not going to try and find a car park. When we did them earlier in the year in January, it was school holidays and stuff, so things were a little bit less busy. So going to try and catch a train for the first time in a while. And then, and I'll drive down to you on Saturday, Sunday, probably crash in your couch on Saturday night, have a few beers, and then do it all again Sunday.
Perfect. Couldn't think of anything better. Question without notice and completely off the run sheet. I've heard it said regularly that as far as cities go, Melbourne is quite photogenic. Would you agree?
It is. I think Melbourne's got it's got little sections all through the city. Like the Docklands is really, really good. I find the Docklands really good for photography. All the alleyways and laneways and little cafes, they're really cool. And then you've got some of the older buildings up the top end of Collins Street and stuff like that, and Parliament House and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's got it's very photogenic. It's definitely got different eras and different architecture and stuff like that. And there's always something weird going on in Melbourne with people. Like there's someone hanging off a tram or something like that. Or
well, the trams themselves make great photos too, don't they?
Yeah, they did. We did that earlier in the year with one of the days, the Princess Bridge near Fred Square. Yeah, we had some slow motion using the inbuilt neutral densities to blur the green trams going across the bridge.
Yeah, very cool.
But I saw on the news tonight with Peter Hitchner and Fed Square's got, I think they called it the Spark Festival. And it's like fireworks, but it's with bubbles and lighting and stuff like that, which is happening every night. So
how convenient.
It just happens to be that we were meeting it and finishing at Fed Square. So that could be pretty cool, or it'll completely screw up my plans of being around Fed Square and we'll have to think of something on the spot. But
because there'll be 80 trillion people there.
There'll be everyone and their dog and the bubble blowers all going, but it could be cool. So yeah, I'll update you next time on how that went or how that didn't go.
Very good. Thanks to everyone who has liked, followed, and subscribed on YouTube. Little minor milestone, 551 subscribers. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Growing all the time.
It is going up pretty well, the subscribers on the YouTubes.
Yep. And back into the charts this week as well.
Back in we're on the British charts. We kicked into the British charts too.
I saw that. So hello to anyone who's listening in the UK, Great Britain, whatever you call it over there these days, England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, whatever you want.
The United Kingdoms of Kingdoms.
That's right.
But yeah, we came in somewhere, about 200th. But if you are listening, I know there was people in Scotland that were listening.
Yeah.
So if you do listen over there, thank you. And it'd be great to, again, share it around your friends over there and
Yes.
Yeah.
We have attracted a global audience. God help us.
Imagine if we made it like in the top 20 or something like that, or
Yeah.
of the UK or something.
We'll be like the Beatles breaking into the charts overseas.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe
Who
more
would
like
you
the
be
next.
if you were a Beatles? Who would you be? Which one?
Which one would I be?
Yeah, which one would you be?
Oh, Jesus. That's a question without notice.
Yeah, well, you gave me one.
Um, I'd probably, I'd like to think that I'd be Paul, but I'm probably not. I think I'm more of a Ringo.
Right, okay, right. I've never even thought about the answer to that, but I thought I'd
Yeah.
ask you
Anyway,
just to make you look like
thank
an
you.
idiot. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
right.
Both Paul and
Moving on.
Ringo were left-handed,
Well, there you go. So maybe I'll be Paul Ringo because
yeah,
I'm not left-handed. I'm a left-handed golfer, but not writing
which
it.
is just all kinds of weird. Do
Hmm.
you know they don't make cameras for left-handers just to bring it back onto some kind of photography chat?
Yeah, we've spoken about that, haven't we? You got
We
to,
have.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
So
back button focus is so useful.
I sold a camera. This is a true story. I sold a camera to a guy that had no right arm once. And I know it sounds like a terrible joke, but it's not.
So
It's
many
true.
jokes. All right.
And
Guess he,
so
I
he
guess he was
used
quite
the
harmless.
he held the camera in his left hand upside down and used his thumb for the trigger.
Oh, like that.
Yes.
See, I must admit, like, tragic that people have disabilities, and by no means are we putting any shit on anyone who has any disabilities.
Yes.
But like, you've got to admire how they adapt. Like,
Oh, it's brilliant.
here we are. I complained when I got home from golf today. My wrist was a bit sore. I'm like, oh, gee, my wrist is a bit
Yeah,
sore.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, but at least I've got a wrist and I can actually
that's
go
right.
and play golf. So these, yeah,
You've got a wrist that can get sore.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, shout out to those who do it tough and just make us look, quite pathetic when we carry on about things.
Yeah, I also sold a camera to a blind guy.
You did not.
That is true.
Right.
He had his guide dog in the shop and everything. It was fantastic. He wanted to take photos. So,
Bet you didn't see that coming.
wow. Did I thank everyone for subscribing and liking yet?
Well, look, our subscribers are going down.
That's right.
No.
Oh dear. Let's talk about our backgrounds just to keep this before we drive this show completely into the ground
I
tonight.
wonder how many complaints we're going to get over this one.
No, people have a sense of humor. I'd like to think we still have our senses of humor.
Well, here's a community notice for our subscribers and likers. If you don't have a sense of humor, please unsubscribe.
That's right. We don't want you here.
We don't want you here. You go first with your background, because
okay, sure. What do we do? Yes, that's right. This is Ocean Grove. It shows up quite yellow in this photo. The photo is not actually that yellow, but I don't know. It's probably just bad editing on my behalf more than anything. So this is it's called Raff's Beach, RAAF Raff's Beach, and it's pretty much smack between Ocean Grove and Bowen Heads. We'll be quite close to this beach on Saturday and Sunday during the workshop. So, and you can really only get this photo in winter when the bigger swells come in and the tide sort of pushes the sand up on the beach like that. And then the bigger swells come in and wash up around that old fence line there. I don't even know what that old fence line is. It might have been an old barrier to hold the sand in place, but like a groin, I think they call that. But I don't understand why it runs parallel to the beach instead of perpendicular. But anyway, exposure time of about, I don't know, I want to say maybe half a second using an ND.
Nice.
Simple,
very,
really.
Very
nice
good.
And easy.
And the RAF is obviously RAAF, as in Air Force.
Yeah, beach. I think it gets its name from, they used to do training there back during the wars.
Right.
So it was known as Raff's Beach. All the surfers know it as Raffs.
Right, as they do. Well, my background is that going to work? Yep. This is on the way to the boat just yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. On Tuesday, on the way up through a place called Pine Lake. It's got all these beautiful pencil pines. It was foggy. It was moody. This is a 2-second walk from the car on a boardwalk. So I thought I can't drive past that and not get some old gnarly pencil pine trees, which are very cool. They grow at certain altitudes. They're very, very old. So that tree onto the left of the frame there, the bigger tree there, is probably going to be pushing 800,000 years old, maybe, as a tree.
Really?
And,
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. So we do have some very cool trees in Tassie. So, but that was a nice little happy snap as I made my way up to the boat.
Tasmania is known for its trees.
Yeah, yeah,
So you
we've
got
got
so you got that behind you, which is your pencil pine. You got your Huon pine, which is world famous.
yeah,
You get your Fagus, which
correct.
is pretty much world famous as well. I'm sure,
Yeah,
and there's probably some other your Pandeni and all that sort of stuff.
yeah. So we've got a lot of the Gondwana trees and
Yes,
Jurassic trees or whatever Jurassic time trees. So the pencil pines, the King Billy pines, the Huon pines, the beautiful old myrtles, and then like you said, the Fagus and the Pandanus. We also have beautiful Waratahs down here. We've got if you're into photography, nature photography, which was mainly about the flora of a region, then this would be a pretty good project to come down and see. Plus, we've also got the world's tallest flowering gums, the swamp gums.
amazing.
We've got everything. So yeah, it's really a time capsule down here
Mm.
for plant life, which is makes for great photos, as you know.
Yeah, incredibly diversive. I love it.
Mm.
Just a little bit, just to talk a little bit about episode 81 of the Down South Photo Show. Just it stirred up, as we knew it would, stirred up a lot of discussion, and we had a bit of input from people who wanted to voice their opinions about photographic competitions. I would just like to reiterate the comments we made last week had nothing, zero, to do with the person that entered the winning photo in the competition. It's a fine photo. There's nothing wrong with it. There was 25 other photos that were better than it that came after it. So that was our point.
Just give it a kick, give them a kick while they're down.
No. As I say, nothing against.
No,
nothing.
no.
There was nothing technically wrong with that photo. It just wasn't the best photo that was entered. That's all.
Yeah, we did get some feedback and some comments, which is what we're trying to generate here as well. We want to have some discussion around
We do.
things.
We want to have discussion. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I don't think there was a right or wrong answer as to what people do with their photo comps and whether or not people thought the photo comps they see are good or bad. So be it. I found it quite amusing that we got a lot of messages, even anonymous phone calls to your store asking questions about the episode and which competition we were talking about.
Yes.
As we said off the bat, when we weren't going to say where it was, who it was, what it was, it was more about just bringing some awareness to what we sort of see as a bit of a trend happening with the photo competitions and what's going on. Yeah, so it was interesting. It's always interesting to talk about that, and people always, they always sort of come back. They're either team yes or team no. So yeah, it's good. It's good that we're discussing that, and hopefully people now, maybe when they're looking to enter competitions, they might just look a little bit outside the box a bit as regards to what they're going to enter and how they're going to enter it. And yeah, I think it was educational and controversial at the same time.
Yeah, and I was talking you today during our 4 and a bit hour production meeting that we had.
Yeah, it was a good production meeting.
It was. You made some very valid points during the production meeting.
Okay, I too come to light.
Okay, that's enough of the in jokes. We'll let everyone in. Yes, Cam and I played golf together this morning, and that was our production meeting that went for 4 and a bit hours at Lonsdale Links.
Yeah, before the rain. It's good.
Yes, played with a lovely gentleman, Richard, who was quite interested in what we did and the show. I'm sure he's listening.
G'day, Richard.
Shout out to Richard. And I mentioned to Cam that I discovered yet another photographic competition. I think it was by one of the outdoor stores, Anaconda or one of those. Who's the other one? Anyway, whatever. And they wanted some outdoor/adventure photos, and you enter it into their competition. And if you get picked, you get in their magazine and you get in their calendar. I thought, that's pretty cool. As usual, I'll read the terms and conditions, got all the way through, and right at the end, $19 per entry, please.
Yeah, that's pretty rich for an entry price for a competition.
Well, it's only $19, but that's not the point. I think $1 is too much. No money should change hands when all they're going to do is use your photos for their advertising.
Yeah, and this is where I get a bee in a bonnet about it, is that over the last 5-10 years, we've become our own worst enemy, because we put all these photos out there, we share them online, we enter competitions, and then these companies pick them up and use them, or they make you pay for the competition, but the terms and conditions say they'll use them on the front cover or whatever it is. And then we sit there and piss and moan that people are taking our photos and we can't sell any photos anymore, we can't make money. you can't have your cake and eat it. You either say, no, I'm not entering these competitions because you're going to use my images for this, or you do, and you accept the consequences of what happens to your images afterwards. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, like I think we spoke about this on a previous episode as well about entry prices to competitions, and some of them are free, and then some of them charge, and yeah, again, it's up to the individual whether or not they want to. Maybe the one that we were talking about last week, that image that won and has done well in other competitions, and maybe they'll pay $20 to enter and have a good chance of winning again.
Yeah, and I think I heard everyone just yell out all at once, well, Brendan, if you don't want to pay it, don't enter the competition. And you're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm not going to do. We're going to talk about some printing this week, Cam.
Yeah.
Seems that's what we teased our audience with last week.
I think we teased them about 3 weeks ago, but that's okay.
That's right. It sounds about right.
Yeah. We said, oh well, next week we'll do this, and then we went on to something else. Now this one won't be a rant, I don't think. So it's probably not going to rank really well on the charts, or
no, it's going to be some information about printing photos, because of course, doing what I do, I print photos all day, every day. It's my thing. Sometimes I print little 6x4 photos. Sometimes I print gigantic canvas prints, of which I've got 2 sitting in my office right now by a very talented and world famous Tasmanian-based landscape photographer.
Not that TP guy.
No, not toilet paper. Someone else.
I already know where this is going, because every episode now TP is going to have a different meaning.
True, that's right, exactly. Tent pole.
Total prick. No.
And we made the bold claim many episodes ago. Well, I did. I don't know whether you backed that up, but I made the bold claim that a photograph is not a photograph until it's printed.
Yep.
And although in this modern era, it's getting harder and harder for that to hold water because of the mediums in which we view our photos. So computer screens, phone being the biggest one, monitors rather than actually having them printed. And of course, I have a vested interest because I do it for a living, but I still do believe photos are made to be printed. And I actually believe the technology that goes into cameras always is grounded in the printed image. By the time you get, image resolution and color calibration and all that sort of stuff, it generally always is anchored in the print medium. So, to give you a good example, now the 2 photos that I printed here for you, I'm talking about, Cameron, the two that I printed for you.
Yeah.
I thought they were great photos, honestly. And I'm not blowing smoke. They are great photos, the 2 that I printed. It wasn't until I actually printed them and then stretched them onto canvas and put them on the stretcher bar, and then leant them up against my wall and went, holy smokes, these are actually really good photos. And
there's something about a print, isn't there, though?
There is. It's tactile. It stirs something else. It's more than looking at a monitor, particularly, and I'm a huge fan of textured surfaces, so canvas, cotton rag papers. I much prefer to print on those over smooth, gloss or a luster pearl finish and that sort of stuff. But with the canvas prints in particular, there's a certain luminosity about them, and I really enjoy it. And of course, I did these things quite big, and I think that's probably the clincher, is if you're going to print. I do a lot of canvases, like small canvas prints, A4, like they're so boring. Like I love doing bigger canvases, like 20 by 30.
You made about that size.
Yeah, exactly. Let me get a ruler. 20 by 30 inches to begin with is I think your base starting point. If you've got a good landscape photo, don't waste it on a small print. Get something printed decent. Maybe at a pinch, if I had to say A3 would be okay. A2 is better. 20 by 30 inches, that sort of stuff. So I'm a massive fan of the printed image, and I still get a big buzz, obviously, when I see my own stuff, but probably these days even more so when I see another photographer's work come to life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I agree 100%, is that it's not until, and I think one of the things I love about putting prints or printing prints or putting them in a frame or whatever it might be, even just printing off my little A2 printer at home, is just sometimes the detail that you just don't see on a screen. Like most of us look at a picture these days on one of these things.
Yeah.
So, we don't really you see a picture and you go, oh, that looks aesthetically okay and, pretty and there's nice colors. But when you get a print and a big print, like you said, A3 or A2, you see all the, for example, all the moss on the rocks behind me here, and you see all the bark detail and all that kind of stuff. You don't get that on a screen. You might see it when you're editing it, but the photo is not for you to view and enjoy it as such. It's for the person that you want to share it to or the world you want to share it to. So I would have thought that printing stuff out would be probably the ultimate game, because people can actually really look at the detail that we see with our own eyes. And I'm sure it happens where you take a photo and you say, oh, I love this little bit, in the back of the photo, whatever it might be. And it's there because you're editing it. That's great. And you see it there. And then you put it on a little screen and no one sees it.
Yeah.
And the whole magic of that shot might be lost because people don't see it. It's not until you print it out to a decent size or people see it on a bigger display, which is rare, that they sort of see the real full value of the artist and the shot they've taken. And there's a classic example I try and do with a lot of my shots. I always try and do what's called little Easter eggs. So I always try and put something in my shot that's away from the main topic, but might catch someone's eye. Sometimes it's like a crescent moon, or it might be a little leaf, or it might be a bit of this. And you don't pick that up as much on a screen. But when you print it out, people go, oh, wow, hey, that's cool. I didn't see that bit before.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think. And getting back to what you said, I think a lot of the cameras are definitely weighted in the printing medium. And you go back to like the legends like Ansel Adams. He did books on how to print. Peter Dombrowski's printed, Ken Duncan prints, Steve Parrish prints, Peter Eastway prints. Like they all used to or still print heavily, which really should be the ultimate game for people. And I know I've been driving at home in my workshops with customers. Hey, you know what? Send me a file, and I'll print it out for you. And I'm actually going to start doing that on some of my workshops. I'm going to put a little gift pack together and actually give someone like an A3 print rolled up of their work or my work, whatever it might be, just so they can roll it out and have a look at it and feel it and say, wow, that looks really great. Look at that detail.
Yeah.
I think that's what we should be aiming for.
No, I completely agree. And I'm the same. I wanted to, as an example, run like a workshop for someone, but at the end of it, they end up with the canvas print on their wall. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It might be something we get into down the track. So when it comes to printing, you pose a question, what's the most important thing about printing? Well, there's not one exact, one thing that's more important than another. It's a concoction of a lot of things. One thing to remember straight out of the gate is what size you do want to print to and what convention you want to use. Now, do you want to print in A sizes? Do you want to use millimeters? Do you want to use inches? Now, this can sometimes be determined whether or not you want to frame your artwork or whether you've got a specific spot on the wall for it. So what I come up against a lot is people that, interest rates have just gone up again. People are tightening their belts. People are looking to save a few bucks. So people will go and buy cheaper frames, which is fine if that suits your budget and you get a frame that looks good and you're happy to spend that money. The problem normally is they buy them in A sizes. So there'll be an A3, an A2, or an A1. Fine. The issue comes though is what part of your photo are you going to crop out?
That's right.
Because our sensors are not set to A sizes. They're set to photographic sizes, photographic ratios, namely 2 to 3 or 3 to 4.
Yeah. And I think I've fallen in that trap a few times as well, where I've bought frames and I'm like, oh, cool, that's an A4 frame, but I've got 8x12 paper or 8x10 paper or vice versa. And you're like, okay, one, it doesn't fit the frame snug because it's the wrong, like I said, the wrong ratio. And then two, where am I cropping? Ideally, you don't want to be cropping anything off your photo if you don't have to.
That's right.
But so you're saying that the first thing people really should look at is where they're going to put the photo and what sizes they're going to work in, whether or not it's centimeters or inches.
Or A sizes.
Yeah. So could people, if people did want to go out and buy cheap frames, and they then shoot to that ratio, would you, like if they went out and bought like
Yeah, of
a whole
course.
heap of A3.
Yeah. Well, that's one way it can be done. But of course, the other way is to edit your photo suitably. So you can, you might have a photo that you took 5 years ago. You never thought about framing it, but now all of a sudden you want to frame it.
Yeah.
Then it's a matter of putting your image into your editing software, whatever you're using. Every piece of image software from bloody Microsoft Paint to full-blown Photoshop has a crop tool.
Yeah,
and you can set the crop tool to the right ratio that you need to crop to. And some of them are even break it right down. They'll even say A3. Great, perfect.
Yeah,
right.
okay.
So I'm going to print to A3. What a lot of people don't realize with frames as well, if a frame, particularly a frame that comes with a pre-cut mat board, if it says it's A3, it means it's A3 plus just a little bit extra to cover the artwork. People get confused by that. They think that I've got to print it A3 plus that extra couple of mil. No, I don't.
Oh, right, yeah.
If it says A3 on the frame, it means they've made it A3 with a very slight overlap on that mat board so that it'll hold your photo properly.
Otherwise, it just falls through the hole.
Correct. So there's always confusion about that. But as a rule of thumb, you can be assured that whatever it says on the frame is the size you need to print your artwork to.
Okay. Moving away from framing and sizing.
Yep.
If we go back to the start, because that's sort of the end of the process, we go back to the start of the process. If you're shooting a scene as a professional printer, what are the top 3 things that you see that people don't do correctly, I guess, in camera? So whether or not it's lack of focus, or it's a different sharpness, or filter vignetting, whatever it is. What are the things that you see most on people's images that you go, you know what, you could have probably fixed that at the time of photo?
Oh, well, the first thing is your basic composition, but also when it comes to important parts of your composition being quite close to the edges, that creates a problem straight away with printing, because you're going to crop part of the image, or if you want to make it a canvas print and it's going to wrap around the edge, you're going to lose part of the edge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's a different technique that we use, which I'll come back to later when we're talking canvases. But I see that a lot where, particularly because I print a lot of like family reunion photos, and it's a big group of people, and they've got, in fact, quite often it's a professional photographer has come in, and they will put heads right on the extremes of the photo. Give me some room, please. I'm not talking about much. I'm just talking about 5% more, just so I've got margins to play in when we do have to crop your photo to suit the cheap frame that you bought, or to suit the particular frame that you bought. So I think number one is definitely giving thought to the person printing your photo and giving them margins to play in. I think that's really important.
I've been having this chat with his friend Jamie. We just did the Bruny Island workshop together, and he came back and he had some photos that he had edited from a similar thing behind you on a beach. And he goes, "What do you think of these, Cam?" And straight away I'm like, "Oh, 1, 2, 3." There was these 3 points all touching the outside of the frame.
Yep.
And he's like, "Oh, I didn't even notice them." And I'm like, "Yeah, just give things room to breathe." So even if you're not printing, a really good tip is and I do it all the time, is I always scan the outside of my frame. So here I scan the outside of my frame.
Yep.
And one thing that annoys me on my shot here at the background is, where are we over here, is that tree is actually going into the top of the frame. I could have put a bit of gap in there, but I would have lost the ratio and would have squeezed the size in a bit more. So yeah, red hot tip for me is, if you're taking, especially a landscape shot, before you take the shot, or even after you take the first one, just scan around the outside of the frame and see what's going to annoy Brendan when he goes printing. If something's going to be touching, you can see here on this side, I've got a bit of gap between that tree and the frame, and same on the other side here, I've got a bit of gap. And that's done purposely to give the subject a bit of room to breathe. So it works both ways.
Definitely. And the second thing that I'll point out, and this actually happened today to a customer, and you might think it's a bit weird to bring this up, but ISO. So quite often, particularly if you're a beginner or you're an amateur photographer, you'll quite often be tempted to leave your camera in auto ISO mode. Now, what can generally happen there is when you start operating in lower and lower light, the camera will and if you're just shooting in program or auto modes, the camera will boost its ISO without you doing anything. It does it automatically. It just boosts the ISO. And on your little LCD screen on the back of the camera, and even on your phone screen, or in some cases your laptop screen, you don't notice just how noisy that image or grainy that image is until you bring it into me and you say, I need an A1 print of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the first thing I do, so if ever I'm printing those sort of sizes with the customer right in front of me, is I will open it in Photoshop and I'll enlarge it to actual size on my screen, because my screen is calibrated to my printer so that people can see exactly what they're going to see in the print. Now, again, it's all about correct viewing distance. So the viewer's not necessarily going to be going right up to it close and, oh, geez, look, I can see that's quite grainy. I make sure that the customer knows that it's there, so that when they pick up their print, they don't go, oh, you could have told me it was grainy, or I didn't realize it doesn't look very good because it's so grainy. That's because you've made it literally 40 times bigger than your phone screen. So yeah. Watch your ISO if you know you're going to want to print big.
And there's something you can do to help that. And you're right, a lot of people do go straight into auto ISO, and which is fine. A lot of the newer cameras can handle that. But like you said, if you start printing big, you're going to start noticing that. But one thing you can do on a lot of cameras these days is actually put an upper limit on your ISO. So, if you let the camera go auto, it might go from 100 to 125,000 ISO. Yep. Well, if you are in a darker situation, the camera is always going to push that high ISO to match the shutter speed, so there's no camera shake. But you can actually limit that top end and the bottom end if you want to. But you can limit the top end so you don't blow the ISO too high and get noise, as you noticed. We'll probably capture this later on in the bit about the paper that we're going to talk about. But you would certainly see different noises on different papers.
100%.
Canvas would probably swallow a lot of noise versus a nice smooth luster or something, or a smooth gloss or whatever it might be. So
exactly.
But we'll get onto that. Have you got another one in camera that you're thinking?
Yeah, well, and that's the one that we banged on about a few weeks ago, and that is sharpness of the image, and that marries up a little bit with the ISO issue as well. Is sometimes it is important to pixel peep, to have a bit of a look, zoom in on your screen and check your sharpness. And normally for me, if I'm in the field, it happens after I've taken the shot. So I'll take the photo. You know the feeling, Cam, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do. You've got something. It's like, no, that's working for me. That's a good shot. The first thing I do is zoom in on it. And it's like, okay, that I'm still here. The scene is still there. This is my chance to check and make sure I got, did I nail that focus? Did I get that right? Could I have changed the aperture setting so I get a bit more depth, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, that's an unbelievably good, important point.
Pro tip.
And that's an extra pro tip. And I think what people need to get their head around, if you really want to improve your photography, like if you're just a happy snapper and you don't care, go for it, knock yourself out. But if you're wanting to get, a better level of photography and output and professionalism, shoot like you're shooting film. Pretend that each frame of that digital camera, even if you got 5,000 shots on your memory card, treat each frame as if it's a roll of film, or a one single negative. Because if you're shooting film, you used to do all that naturally. That's you right. Check everything. Before I press this button again for another $5, is it going to be working? So make sure, check your sharpness, check your aperture, check your composition. I also check the highlights to make sure I'm not blowing any highlights in my files and stuff like that.
Like I managed to in this photo right here.
A little bit. But it's something that you can simply do. And if you get in the habit of it, it's 2 seconds after each shot. You just go, yep, tick, 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 they're done. I'm good to go. So, it's really important that you just check all those important details of the shot before you take it to you and drop a couple $100 on a really nice print and a frame.
Which
and get
is
it back
an added...
Yeah,
it's an added bonus of using a tripod, isn't it? Because, you've got your camera locked off on a tripod, you've got your composition right, but you might have stuffed up and blown highlights in a certain area. Well, you can make your corrections without moving the camera. Everything is framed up exactly where you left it.
Exactly.
Which I guess I took for granted until just then. I just thought about it and went, that is a real plus of having a tripod.
Totally. And I shared something with you last night, someone asking about a tripod.
That's right.
In a Facebook group, and they said they wanted to use all these real heavy lenses to do a lot of all different types of applications of photography. And I said, based on all that, your lightweight tripod that you're looking for is not going to be sturdy enough for carrying the weight of the gear you've got. You're going to introduce probably more problems than fixing problems. So using a tripod when you can is going to help a lot of different things. Like you said, it'll keep that frame the same. but it also helps with sharpness and everything else that goes with it. So yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be said for getting it right in the field.
Yeah,
when
totally.
you're starting.
To me, I reckon it's 90% of the work.
Yeah.
If you can get something really good in camera, and then you edit it, and then you print it, it all just gels in it's like a really good song composition. It all goes together. It comes out at the end sounding and looking really good, and you've created a bit of art. So, so if we go from the camera to the next step, because there's 3 steps. There's the shooting, the developing or editing, and then the printing.
Yeah.
When you're in your editing, is there some sort of highlights that stand out for you that what people do wrong or maybe can change when they're editing?
And number one by far is monitor calibration.
Yeah.
So people get a little bit hung up on calibration. It seems really complicated when in actual fact it's purely not. You've just got to look at it as a baseline. So if I've got a screen, I'm looking at a computer screen now. Cam, you're looking at one. I've got my phone screen here. I've got 17 different monitors at work. Now, when monitors are brand new, the colors on them are generally pretty accurate. Over time, I'm sorry, that's a very, very broad statement and not completely true, because some monitors are crap. But as a general rule of thumb,
they're at a factory standard.
They're at a factory standard. And when we say calibrate, it's not like every monitor gets calibrated differently. Every monitor gets calibrated the same. That's my point. And a lot of people don't realize that when we talk about monitor calibration, I want your monitor at home to look like my monitor at work, to look like this monitor I'm looking at now. And monitor calibration can be quite simple. Unfortunately, you need a tool to do it, like a monitor calibrator. Now, I'm lazy as I don't calibrate anywhere near as much as I should. However, the main monitor that I print from in my shop is a good expensive monitor that holds its color quite well. So you can turn your monitor off and then turn it on again, and it might be slightly different in terms of color.
Yeah.
You can also be looking at your monitor in the daytime and then looking at it in nighttime, and that can make a difference as well. It's really important, if you want to get into printing regularly, to have the similar environment that you're viewing your images. So a similar light source every time. That's why you can see some quite expensive monitors like the EZO monitors and this sort of stuff. They have the big black box that comes off the side of the monitor. That's to cut down that ambient light that's striking the panel, so that it's not giving you a color cast. Yeah. So monitor calibration doesn't have to be difficult. You can get very, very basic monitor calibrators like your Color Monkey and these things, which are, I look from memory, about $100. And they're great. You basically just suspend a little contraption over your screen, and it puts a white box on the screen, and it reads it, and then it basically changes the settings on your monitor. So you're running software that actually changes the settings on your monitor to calibrate it. So
that's right.
It's not as complicated as people think.
No, I think before I sort of got into printing a few years ago, that was the one thing that I sort of just went, "Ooh, that sounds a bit tricky. Maybe I'll just go try it and see how I go." And I had that many issues. I'd get a beautiful coloured shot and I'd print it and be like, it's okay, but it's not where I want it to be. But then I started calibrating all my monitors. I use the Spider color monitors. They're really good as well. I was just thinking, as you were talking then, about people that may listen to it, and those color monitor calibration tools, they're maybe $150, maybe $200, or whatever they might be. They might be cheaper. But I was just thinking that, again, interest rates going up, people are, cutting everything back a bit. But if you're in a camera club or have a really good group of friends that are all photographers, just go buy a monitor between your group or your camera club and just share it around, because it's portable. They're only
a calibrator. That's right. Yeah.
They're only tiny. So, if you're in a camera club and you want to make sure, your printing calibration of your monitor is good, then buy one for the club and keep it in the club, and then people can just take it home and calibrate their monitor, or bring their laptop into the club rooms or whatever it might be. Or, if you've got a handful of mates that all do photography, just go chip in and buy one together, because it'll save you massive headaches later on when you're sort of editing and then printing. And the money you spend on Grader, you'll probably say,
having said all this, though, don't get too hung up on color. A lot of people. So I print for the masses, and I print for a lot of pros as well. I print for quite a few school photographers and kindergarten photographers and this sort of stuff. And I just tell them to calibrate their monitor. They get it, they understand that. That's fine. I do occasionally get people in who will look at an image on my screen and then look at the canvas print I've done for them, and they'll notice a 2 to 3% variance in color.
Right.
The photo still looks amazing. I don't. It's very, very hard to deliver perfection in color. There is always going to be some kind of tolerance. Now, whether that comes down to screen calibration or whether it comes down to the material that you're printing to, or the printer hasn't. There is a difference between calibrating a monitor and then actually calibrating your printer. And they are two different things as well. And professional print labs calibrate their printers very, very regularly, like every few months, because it can change a lot. So I can order a roll of canvas from Ilford, for example, and I order it comes in January and it looks fantastic. And then I order exactly the same canvas in June and it comes in and it's slightly different. It's actually, and again, we're talking small percentages here. Don't get too hung up on it. Don't look at that. Some people say, that looks different to my screen, therefore I don't like it. They don't actually take a step back and go, actually, it still looks totally fine. And look, I'm happy to reprint stuff for people, but quite often it'll be a case of, well, hang on a minute, let's just have a look at this and make sure that you are actually unhappy with it. And and sometimes it's blatantly obvious that there's been some mistake somewhere, and I understand that. But quite often it's that subtle that it's like, actually, you know what, this one's probably better. And that happens a lot too. So you just, as I say, don't get too hung up on the color science of it. But as long as you're within that, I want to say 3 to 4%, you should be satisfied with that result from a good quality printing lab.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're not getting the results you want from a proper lab, then you might need to look elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going through Snapfish and spending 19 cents for an A4.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, I would highly, highly recommend people don't print through places like Harvey Norman, Kmart, even Kodak Express stores, all those, those smaller labs. Print with someone who, like you said, prints on a daily basis and prints all different types of materials, canvases, sizes, the whole lot. Because the ones that do the Harvey Norman and the Snapfish and all those kind of stuff, they are just worthless.
Those places drive pro photographers insane. Because you pay a photographer thousands of dollars to shoot your wedding, and then you go and print them at Harvey Norman. And it's just it's like running a Ferrari on regular fuel or whatever. It's just Tirana hubcaps on a Lamborghini. It just doesn't work.
And the thing that really annoys me about that as well is if you do a wedding, and most of the time when I did weddings, it's like, well, if you do want to get prints done, let me print them. I'll charge you the cost of what they are. I'm not going to make any money on it, but let me print them. And they go to Harvey Norman or something like that and get them printed and come back. Oh, they're okay. The color's a bit wishy-washy. And that reflects on you as the photographer. But you're like, well, it's got nothing to do with me.
So the people looking at those photos, if the photos look no good, are they going to say who printed these? No way. No. They're going to say who took these photos.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So look after your photographer, people, and get them, pay a few extra bucks and get them printed somewhere good.
It's hard enough as it is. All right. Would you have any recommendations on printer choice? So if people are listening, they're like, you know what, I'm going to start printing some stuff. I'm going to go buy a $99 printer, inkjet printer from Officeworks to do A4 prints. Would you say that's a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely not. Look, there's some okay printers out there. I'll tell you the big problem with printers, particularly inkjet, is people get into the idea of wanting to do it, and that's great, and they'll buy it and they get all excited, and then they realize that nothing's calibrated, the colors aren't right, it's not coming out how they thought it would come out, even though you're following the instructions to the absolute letter. Then they get a bit frustrated. Then the printer sits there for 3 months and they go to use it again and all the heads are clogged because they're not using it.
Yep.
Printers need to be used every day. If
Yeah.
you're not going to print every day, I would seriously think about using a lab to print for you. And I've seen it in my printers. I've got my big, you've seen my big Noritsu printer, which is a $75,000 machine. If it sits for more than 2 or 3 days, I've got to run nozzle cleans and head checks and all this sort of stuff to get it back.
Yeah.
But if it prints on the regular, it never skips a beat. So
yeah, I think that's something that people, again, we're talking about sort of the printing side of things. It's another part of the art form. Like it's not like take all this time to take a photo, take all this time to edit, press a button, print. It's not like that. The printing is a process as well, where you need to take care of your equipment. Like you said, you need to print regularly. If you're not, you need to do the nozzle checks and the print tests and stuff like that, because there's inks does different things, different printer heads, or all these different things you need to take care of. So yeah, I agree. If you're looking to print stuff, look, I probably, like in my experience, I'd push it out maybe a little bit more. In my experience, if I don't print something every week or two, then I'll do a full nozzle check, the whole thing on mine. But I find that my Epson printer that I've got, I think it's a P800, I think it is.
It is,
that seems to go well, within a week or so of using it. I cranked it up the other day for the first time in about a month, and straight away did a nozzle check, and it showed the little pattern that it does, and it showed all these gaps, and I had to do a clean. So if you are going to do printing, which again, this is what this is all about, this episode, is people should be out printing. If you're going to look at doing it at home, then you need to be looking at regularly printing stuff. And the way I've got around that issue of letting my printer stay dormant is, if I come back from a shoot or I've got some images, I've got boxes of prints. So I'm just printing really nice shots I like out and storing them carefully back in boxes so that I can put them in frames later or whatever, but it also keeps my printer ticking over as well.
Yep, for sure. And of course, then comes the costs involved with having your own printer as well. And I don't know whether I've mentioned this on the show before, but I would say printer ink is one of the most expensive liquids in the world.
It's unreal, isn't
it? It's phenomenal. Like, we complain about the cost of fuel at hitting $2 a litre.
Yeah.
Folks, if you could fill up your petrol tank with printer ink, and I'm not making this up, it will cost about $85,000 to fill your petrol tank with printer ink. It's just absolutely highway robbery what these companies charge for home printer inks. Here, buy a printer, it's $80, but every time you have to refill it, it's $129. And then it's going to clog, and then the printer, it's outrageous what they're charging for printer ink for home style printers.
Yeah, and then they still tell you that you need to use their branded ink. Don't buy aftermarket ink. Do this or do that, or make sure it's the Epson ink. Don't buy this one or don't buy that one. So you're locked into buying it. I'm just looking at prices here, right? So I'm just going on, for example, I'm doing a KL Australia's ink. It is $1.18 per milliliter. So it's $95 for an 80 ml tank.
Yeah, the 80 milliliter tank.
Milliliters. So what's that? You times that by 100.
It's ridiculous how expensive.
Is it 100? No, is it 100 millimeters or 1,000 milliliters for a liter? It's 1,000
for a
so
liter.
A liter of, this is black ink, is $1,186.
There you go.
Average tank of a car,
80 liters.
$77,000, $138.
And that's just black.
That's just black. That's not the color.
But getting back to your question about what brand printers, Epson is all I've ever used. Yeah. So I'm probably a little bit biased towards them. They don't skip a beat. So I've got a printer in my shop at the moment that you helped me lift into the shop, Cameron. You might remember that about 5 years ago.
Back is still killing me about that.
Yeah. It's my 44-inch printer. It's a beast, and I absolutely love it. It's been an absolute workhorse, that thing. It owes me nothing.
Yeah.
And for color accuracy, it's an 8 ink system, so it has the light cyan, light magenta,
Yeah.
light black, light black, and photo black. So as well as CMYK. So it's as well as CMY. It's awesome. It's a cool printer. So yeah, as I say, Canon make fantastic printers. HP, I don't even know if they exist anymore, but definitely Epson.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And the big printer, the Noritsu printer I use, that prints all my everything from 6x4 up to a 12 by 18 inch enlargement. They use Epson printhead technology. So I guess that's why I like it, because I get consistent results.
Right. Keep being conscious of time. Quick. I think paper choice is just the last thing we're going to touch on. That can be quite vague or quite broad in regards to what people want. But you can sort of go canvas, or you can go rag, or you can go luster or gloss, acrylic, whatever it might be. I guess, do you recommend to people when they come in and say, "Oh, I reckon this will look good on canvas. I reckon this might look good on this."
Yeah, I do. And so where I always go back to where they're going to hang it. All right. So if people come in, I'd like to see this as a canvas. I want this. First of all, they say, I want a big print of this. Normally, they've come in their mind that they're going to get it printed on photo paper and they're going to go and get it framed.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people think about canvas. I think canvas has sort of had its day in the sun as a bit of a trend. However, canvas can really suit a particular area, particularly a well-lit area. If you've got a lot of natural daylight, well, do you want to see a lot of glass and reflection, or do you want to see the image? Yes, you can get non-reflective glass. I hate the stuff. It gives a color cast. You can get art glass, which is low reflection, maintains color, gives a bit of a gloss, looks fantastic.
It's really expensive.
It's about $300 for an A1 sheet. So, you got to weigh all that up. So when it comes to paper choices, it's horses for courses as to where it's going to go. I think right now, the smooth and textured cotton rag papers are really popular.
Yep.
They look fantastic behind glass as well. But again, normal glass completely kills the textured surface. It goes back to being glass again, or goes back to being a gloss finish again.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would much see the rag papers behind art glass, and again, you'll pay a lot for it. Or don't forget about canvas, because again, canvas it's lightweight, it's easy to hang, it has no glare or reflection. They're easy to clean. You just literally dust them down, wipe them with a slightly damp cloth, they'll be totally fine. I'm a big, as you know, Cam, I'm a big rap for canvas.
Does canvas have the same archival properties to it as, for example, some of the high-end papers?
It can have, if it's treated correctly. So, and if you use a proper pre-primed photographic canvas, so your bigger brands like Hahnemuller, Ilford, Canson, these guys, they will have properly primed canvas, if you like, that's ready to take the ink and absorb the ink into the surface of the texture. Cheap canvases you'll find through companies like Snapfish, Harvey Norman, these kind of places. They look okay when you get them. In about 6 months, you'll start to see things happening, a little bit of peeling here or there, color starting to change, that sort of stuff. So we use, with the Epson system, we use what's called ChromaLife K3 inks. It's a pigment ink. It actually gets absorbed by the canvas or the paper and dries instantly. So it sort of locks it in there, if you like. Now, if you use archival paper, even if you use the standard Ilford papers, for example, with ChromaLife K3 inks, they say it's guaranteed for 75 years. Now, that's pretty much anyone's lifetime, if you like. Of course, you can get archival paper that will last 300 years. Interesting selling point. I'm not sure why, but sometimes you might want, if it's a really important photo to you and you think it might be a family heirloom, that sort of stuff, I understand that.
Definitely.
But generally speaking, our stuff's color fast for 75 years. So, which I think is pretty good. That's before it starts to change.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
right.
that's
Yeah.
probably like its half-life, if you like.
And by then your eyes are knackered anyway. You can't see the difference anyway.
That's right. But in
Yeah.
75 years, we'll be living to 700. So,
Well, that's right. In 75 years, we'll probably be using the Apple Vision Pro glasses to
yes.
look at our work here.
Can I just make one more point about printing before we move on?
Yeah.
And that is, and this catches a lot of people out. And this is the prepping of your image for printing. Now, you can bring an image into me if you want to come in face to face, and I'll do all this stuff for you. But if you want to email it in or send it online to a printing company, it's quite important that you export it correctly. So in Lightroom or Photoshop, you can export your image, and now I believe in Lightroom there's an export to print option, which will then open a dialog box, which will give you all the parameters you can change. Please send your artwork at a minimum of 300 dots per inch, ideally already correctly sized, so that me or the person at the other end is not resizing it, because resizing it quite often can lead to a change of image quality in terms of resolution. So if you might have it set at 300 dots per inch, but your export size is only 100 mil by 100 mil, whereas you actually want to get a print that's 1,000 mil by 1,000 mil. So this is all really important stuff. A JPEG file is totally fine. You will, in my opinion, get the best results from a TIFF file. However, TIFF files are big. So quite often with a TIFF file, you've physically got to chuck it onto a USB, or at very, very worst, Dropbox it. To get the best result if you want to send a TIFF. A JPEG is totally fine. Even if you're printing quite large, a JPEG is totally fine. Yes, it's a lossy file, which means all the data's not there. But generally speaking, again, with a print at correct viewing distance, JPEGs are totally fine. So don't get too hung up on having to send through TIFF files. In fact, a lot of online ordering systems for printing won't accept a TIFF file because it's normally too bloody big.
That's right.
So, So ideally, TIFF or JPEG, 300 dots per inch and sized correctly, so that I'm not having to choose what part of the image to crop, because that should be up to the photographer.
Yeah. So if anyone's keen to know more about that, there'll be a plethora of online tutorials about how to size your image for printing.
Yes.
It's not a complex part of it, but it's an important part, which probably we can't cover in 10 minutes of a podcast. You probably need to go and have a look. But once you get that done, then once you've done one setup and export it, then you're good. You know how to do it going forward. So
exactly, it's just a habit forming.
Yeah. So I reckon that's covered all our printing questions, or that I wanted to talk about with you.
If you have a question,
and if you do, I'd love to see people put in the comments about whether or not they do print, or if it's something they're interested in printing, or whether or not that's just like hands in the air, too hard, don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear what people are doing, because I think we're such a great little community. We've got 551 subs. I reckon we can always start a movement for people starting to print stuff more. Don't chuck it online to Instagram or that kind of crappy stuff. Maybe print it out and start doing stuff with your photography.
There's nothing better than having your own artwork up on your own walls at home.
Yeah, I can't wait to get these big ones. Hopefully they fit in my car. But
I keep looking at them. They're right here, like literally off camera.
Yeah, right. Did you want to hold off gear talk to next week, because we've gone almost an hour? What do you reckon?
We are getting close to time. Send in your photography horror stories. Yes. Send in your deer cams. We haven't had a deer cam for a little while, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. But who cares? That segment might be done. Who knows?
Yes, maybe. Did we at our business meeting today? Did we drink any beer?
We did.
Did we get any donations for beer this week?
I think we did.
Yeah, they're the same ones as last week, actually.
Of course they are.
Of course they are. So yeah,
thank you, Mel.
Again. Mel and Andrew T again.
Lovely.
We forgot to mention him that first time. Now he's like, well, if you forget me, I'm just going to keep buying your beer.
That's right.
I'm just going to, as you keep going on with the show, I'm just going to quickly see.
Check and make sure that no other beer donations are coming in the meantime, because so you can go to dsps.com.au, folks, and we have a little button there that says buy us a beer. If you like the show, if you want to leave it's like a little tip jar for us, really. We will buy beer with it, we'll have you know. but
Yeah.
that's what it's there for. So it's to show your appreciation if you want to. You don't have to.
Absolutely.
We don't care. Whatever you like. You
Yeah.
might not, you know.
And we also need to thank Jenny Cooper. She also donated a beer this week as well.
Thank you, Jenny. We'll see Jenny on the weekend, I believe.
So lucky I checked, because we'll see her in a few days. And if we
Jenny
didn't
gets a
mention
big
it,
shout out.
she does.
Shall we make mention of the fact that we have one spot left on the Melly workshop?
I wouldn't worry about making that
Okay,
out.
we won't worry about that.
That'd be plugging it too much, wouldn't it? So if we put it out there that we've got one spot left on the Murray
Yes.
Melly workshop, you know what? By the time we run this Murray Melly workshop, I'll be able to pronounce it properly.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. So I think if we went out there and said, "Hey, we've only got one spot left," I reckon that might be plugging it too much. So
Okay.
I wouldn't.
We won't say that. Yeah, well, I'll cut that bit out. Speaking of the Melly, I got a warning on my phone earlier about tornadoes in the Melly. A tornado warning for the Melly. Yeah. Which is quite amazing.
That if we get that on the workshop, I'll be pretty impressed.
I'm the thing that I'm really excited about. So I went up to the Mallee in October last year, and there was a lot of wildflowers, which we haven't even mentioned yet. So this year, I can guarantee you, now that I've said it, we're not going to see one.
No. Good on you, Jinx, the king of Jinx.
Exactly. That's what I do.
Cool. All right. Is that that's over an hour, almost an hour and 1 minute.
All right. What do you got coming up? We know what you got coming up. You've got four workshops in a row, which you'll be halfway through when this comes out.
Yep. And then I'm home from the work. Then you have got
2 workshops coming up with you.
Yeah. What's the note say? Ballerine workshop. What's that stand for?
LFG.
What's LFG?
You might have to Google that. LFG. Never mind. I'm sure a listener will type it below.
That's really good.
Have we done? Is that it? Is that the podcast?
Yeah, look, I reckon we need to make mention of one last thing.
Okay.
And that was that I chipped in from off the green today.
We couldn't let it go.
And on the par 3, you better look, I'll give you 30 seconds to
people. We're going to talk golf, so goodbye to anyone who doesn't want to hear this. We'll see you next show. But I played golf with this gentleman today, and he's a bandit. He is a much better golfer than he makes out. He's off a handicap that is way too generous, but that's fine. I understand how the handicap system works. This dude had a ball that was basically in the face of a bunker, and not only did he get it out of the bunker in one shot, it took one hop and went straight in the bloody hole. So that was outstanding. But then on the 6th hole, which is the first of the par 3s, which was playing 152 meters, if I remember rightly. What club did you use?
I shanked a 5-iron.
He hit a 5-iron that he said, "Oh, that's quite low and toey," and it basically slammed into the pin and almost went in for an ace. So
it was a crazy day on the golf course.
It was nuts. So
and then the back 9 went tits up, and I went back to my
production. The production meeting actually kicked in, and so you lost all your focus.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we started talking business and stuff. Apparently, LFG is looking for group.
No, it's not that. It's let's friggin' go.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
well, on that note, maybe we should go.
I'm just too old. Why am I trying to act like a teenager? That's it. That's the podcast. Thank you for listening to episode 82 of the Down South Photo Show. We will see you for episode 80. Are you going to be around next week?
I'll be around next week, but don't forget our photo competition for June.
Goodness me, how could we? No one's listening now.
No one's listening now. It's pinned on the Facebook page. Get on there. We've got about 40 shots up there already. So Facebook page, Down South Photo Show. It's about weather. So you have to put up your shot for June about weather. Exactly. We'll pick a winner at the end. I'm done. We will bang on more about that next week. Thanks for listening to the show. We'll catch you next week. Bye for now. See you later.